Hey everybody, it's been a long time since I've done a video, but ended up have a game that I wanted to bring down. I usually don't bring them down until I have them fully working and everything, but it's winter time, I'm cold, and kind of want to get this Joust added to the Williams row there that you just saw. I had picked this up probably a year ago, and it's been just sitting in storage, I think. So I think I never even turned it on before I got it. So I turned it on earlier today, and I'll talk about that in a second. But it's just been sitting in storage. I was told it has some type of RAM issue, and I just picked it up. So quick little overview. I pulled the monitor out and blew it out with my like a leaf blower to get all the dust and stuff like that that's been in there. And then I'll clean up the sides and stuff. I'm not going to do a restore or anything like that. I mean, it's got scrapes and bumps and bruises and stuff, but actually it still has, what's kind of rare is a lot of times on these Williams games, the plastic right here, and on Tato's as well, the plastic that protects the bottom right there is usually ripped completely off. So that's still on there. And let's see, definitely needs to scrape off some gum or whatever, but it needs to be cleaned up. But I'll do that down here. So I got most of the dust out. I pulled out the monitor. I can see the control panel. This is a micro switch lighted button or something, so that's definitely not original. We need to fix that. Ton of play in the joystick. This one's really bad, player one. I mean, that joystick needs to be rebuilt. Either a zero play kit added or something. That's terrible, but at least it has the original joysticks on it, and probably needs some, I think, long leaf switch buttons to make it original again. Looks like they painted the front. Obviously this had to have been painted. There's no way that looked like that. A little bit of damage down here, you probably can't see that, but nothing, you know, it looks good enough from the front that put it in a lineup of games and get it running, and that's all I needed. The other thing is, actually, I'll pause and get some light so I can shine some more light on. There, I have some light there, but you can see the speaker. This is just plastic, and this is often broken. This little plastic speaker grill cover kind of thing. So probably could live with it the way it is. Maybe it's pretty bad. But I also have some metal reproductions that a guy on Clove sells. I bought them, one for Make Tracks and one for Defender or something. So maybe, I don't know if I actually have one that will fit this cabinet, but I might. If not, we can always order one. Has the original monitor shroud, which is good. And let's see this side here. Looks pretty good. Again, usually don't like working on these in the basement, but it is super cold outside, and I wanted to get this thing in. So I'll go ahead and pause. We'll open up the back door. And the reason I thought this might be an interesting video is I know it has a RAM issue. I powered it on real quick, and I think the monitor had high voltage, but nothing came on the screen, and there was some error codes on the PCB. So I just figured we'd videotape it real quick and kind of test the power, verify power is working, and then try to troubleshoot the PCB. And I think I put the monitor here in my workroom. It's right there. And we'll test that on the bench. It was making a high squeal noise, so I think I want to recap it and everything, but we'll get to that. The other thing that was kind of interesting is at the bottom, I got project stuff all over the place. But at the bottom of the cabinet, when I was blowing it out, there was like a whole tube of 4116 memory chips. So I don't know if any of these are good, but I mean, there's a whole tube of them. So if it is a memory issue, either they were trying to fix it by replacing memory and it didn't work. But we could also replace these with 4164s. I showed a video on that. Or maybe it's something else that's not memory related, but upstream of the memory. So, all right, I'll be back. We'll open this thing up and probably start cleaning it up, and I'll videotape the parts that I think are interesting. So, yeah, I want to mention one other thing before I get too started. This bezel obviously looks like it's in really good shape, but one of the things is it was very tight to get it out, and then this is glass, and if I turn it around without breaking it, hopefully, I doubt, it does look like it's screened. It doesn't look like it's laminate. There is a little bit of rub mark there or something. So, but it is screened, like even the instruction card is screened, and I don't believe that's original. So this has got to be a reproduction either from Phoenix or Rich at This Old Game. If they did screen these, because this is definitely not a sticker that I can tell. Like it's not vinyl backed or anything like that from what I can see. So, but it is that instruction card is, I doubt they screen that from the factory. So that is probably not original as well. And we'll shine some light here on this thing. But the inside is original, and let me change my camera settings here and I'll be right back. So yeah, it is original brick. The inside looks good. You can also check for serial numbers too. So if I can get my head out of there, this is 599503 there. And that says 604 or something. So that's not the power supply, or this isn't the brick. As far as that goes, let's see if we see anything here. That says 587305. Yeah, so different numbers on all these. So it's definitely not, a numbers matching. Not that I even give a crap about that, but different power supply. And I think that's the soundboard. I don't see any stickers on that at all. No, the caps look original. The connectors are all original. You can see a little bit of discoloration here. This is where the 5 volt is for 4J2, your 5, 12 volt, etc. I believe this one goes, I haven't looked at the schematic recently, but this probably goes to sound or something like that, or maybe that's to the coin door lights or something, I can't remember. But then I come down here and you can see that this connector is burnt to hell, and so they just bypassed it, soldered a wire directly to the back of the board, versus replacing the pins. This connector here, can you see that? Try to get out of that light. There you go. You can see that pin is, that connector is really burnt up as well. So we're gonna have to, even though it says it's working, I'm sure we need to repin this out, put new connectors on it at a minimum to keep this thing from doing more damage to itself. And it's definitely the original cap. So I will probably power it on and just measure the power just to see what it is, and then we'll start taking it apart. But everything looks pretty clean on the inside. There's not a lot of water damage or rodent kind of stuff. There's like a little stain there, but that doesn't look big, which is nice. I mean, dirty, but nothing like, not a ton of mildew stains or anything like that. So this is a pretty solid cabinet, so we'll figure it out and get it working. I think that's about it. All right, okay, I hooked up my ground here. I have the cabinet on, but I've unplugged the PCB. The ground goes to test point 2. You can see that on a little diagram here, but that's from the Joust manual. And right here on this resistor 3, That's test point 1. That's your 5 volt. So 5 volt is 5.1, which isn't bad. Now on these Williams power supplies, unless you do a mod, they regulate themselves. So I mean, you can't adjust the voltage or anything like that with a potentiometer. So you can put one in, and we probably will modify this board to do that, but it's not adjustable, so it is what it is. Let's see. Let's go to right here. Should be 12 volts. Yep, we have 12 volts there. And negative 5 volts is test point 4, which is kind of difficult to get to. Let's see if I can get in there. Yep, so our voltage is pretty decent. There's no worry of sending too many volts. We still need to pull this board and stuff, but I'm just curious of what the game's going to do if we power it on. So I think it's safe to power it on. Let's go ahead and do that. I'll be right back. I'm going to plug in the PCB real quick. Okay, I have my leads put on this chip to test 5 volts at the board. I haven't turned it on yet, so go ahead and do that. Wow, that's low voltage, so did we get anything? Yeah, 3, 2, 1. Might have to turn the light off to see it. But 4.3 volts, that's pretty bad voltage right there. So that might be why this board's not booting. So let's fix this voltage and go from there. We'll probably repin this connector, the board, take the board out, redo this power supply. The power supply is working, but just the connectors are probably terrible. So we need to put new headers and connectors on that and go from there. So all right, I'm going to power it on without the light on so we can kind of see it better. 1, 3, 2. We'll look that up and see what that is, but I'm sure we have a voltage issue, so let's work on that and we'll be back. Okay, so I'm not going to film all my work on this board because it's already working. I'll probably replace some of these caps. I'm going to test the 2 big ones. If they're okay, I'm not going to replace them because I don't actually have those. The other thing you want to do though is verify all the fuses are the right values. So I'm going to pull all these fuses and make sure that the right values. I don't know if you can see that. Let's see. You can see the discoloration of these pins. This one was actually jerry-rigged a bit and soldered directly to the board. That goes to the off board heatsink, one of the transistors there. And this one also was wired. They did put a quick disconnect on that one, but not on this one. So the only other thing is I was looking at is does look like when you do work on these boards, it's always good to see kind of what components have been replaced. Doesn't look like any solder anywhere has been flowed except for on the headers. They reflowed solder there, and this bridge rectifier right here, it's actually mounted off of the board a bit, and I could tell from the top side that work was done, and then from the bottom side it's obvious because you can see all the flux and stuff. So we'll remove all these connectors. Hopefully I have some and can do it today. If not, I'll have to order some and put the board back in and test these caps. So if I order connectors, I'll order these caps anyway. So I think that's all I wanted to say. I'll replace these caps, test the fuses. The board's working, but it's obviously not working well enough. And then maybe I'll film doing the the adjustable 5-volt mod on this board as well. You can get that kit from arcaderepair.com. They have a little kit with the potentiometer to put in there. You just kind of remove a resistor, and I don't remember off the top of my head. Mark Spaeth also has a great write-up on that as well. So, alright, I'll be right back. Okay, usually I don't film any of the work I'm doing, so I've already replaced these connectors here, and basically all the connectors except for the coin door lights and the coin lockout coil, which is a 4J3, I think, or something like that. So I just figured if I kind of will show you guys this a little bit. I mean, I prefer, especially when pulling these things out, is heat up the pin from the backside and pull the pin out. If you can see that, like that. See what's the better way to see that. Like that, maybe. Can't really see it with my finger trying to apply pressure, so I don't have a PCB holder or anything like that. But you basically just want to apply some slight pressure to get this pin out while I heat up the back. Let's see if I can get it done like that. And I usually hold it a little bit better than that. But this way is the best way I've done it, where you don't risk pulling up any of the traces on the top or the through hole connectors. So just heat it up and pull it out. And I'm not even sucking on the solder at this point. I'm just heating it up and then pulling the pin, and we'll clean up the solder afterwards. See, that one I couldn't get all the way. If I had a PCB holder, this might be a little bit easier. There, that one I got. And then there's one pin. The other thing is I usually use a, do I have my marker? I use a marker here so I can just mark which pin is the key pin, so I can wipe it off with alcohol later when I put the new connector in. But this makes it a little bit easier. And so now I'm gonna get this one out, and then just gently try to get this connector off while you're looking at it. Might need to use like a little screwdriver. And then I'm taking a quick peek under there just to see if that pin that I was trying to pull made it through, and so it didn't make it all the way through. So I might go ahead and heat it up and actually push it down some. See if I can heat it up and push it down a little bit. Or apply some solder. So you just want to take your time. Like if it's being stubborn, don't try to force it, and it'll eventually come out. It's like I almost got this thing off. There, so it just put a little bit more solder on it and it came right out. Now we do have to clean up the pins right there at the top part. And I basically, I have a desoldering iron, which makes it a little bit easier, can heat it up. But some of the solder is kind of old, so, and I don't want to apply too much heat to it. So I like to definitely use some flux. I probably use too much, but it's all right because I just clean it up with alcohol later, and I just Put a little bit of flux on the pins, on the pads, I mean, on both sides. And, you know, I don't worry about putting too much because I'm going to clean it up completely afterwards. But just get all this really, you know, nice and clean for the new connector. So I did this for every single one, and then just heat it up with a soldering iron, let it burn off the bad stuff, and then I'll desolder it again. I use these Kimtech wipes. I got that idea from Dog Pee on Clove. His name's Pat. He hosts a lot of arcade parties and stuff. But I just dip a little bit of alcohol here and rub off the flux that I just put on, because I don't want to suck up all that flux in my desoldering iron if I can avoid it. And then I'll just go back, and it's looking a lot better already. Other side. Okay, and the holes look pretty good there. There you go. So we're going to go ahead and put in our connector now. Oh, guess what? I wiped off my darn mark. The mark, I can look at this connector here, so I know that it was right here, pin 5. I could just check the manual too. But pin 5 is the key. Get our connector, trim it to fit, move it like that. Gently get it in there. It's pretty tight fit. These new pins are kind of, sometimes you might have to check, make sure you got all the solder out of the holes. Looks like I did. And then just kind of work it back and forth. It'll eventually get in there, I think. I'm going to actually apply some solder to each hole and then suck it back out. But the one thing I've learned is just take your damn time, because if you rush, you're going to screw something up and make it worse. Still tight as poop. On this side there. Dang. This one was harder to get in. So let me put that in and I'll be right back. Like I said, patience, right? Because I basically reflowed solder again and then cleaned out the holes one more time, and then it popped right in like easy peasy. So just be patient, and if it doesn't work, just redo it again. You know what I mean? Like, it only takes a few seconds to do it the right way, and it only takes a few seconds to totally screw it up. The other thing is, I did check these fuses. One of them, some of them have definitely been replaced, because this 5 volt, what is that, F5, was a 32 volt fuse, which would still work because I guess it's only 12 volts going through there, but I put in a 250 volt fuse, 7 amps, 7 amps, I think that's 4 amps, and then 1 and 3, I think, something like that. But the thing is I could tell that they've been replaced because they were different voltages. Like, one was 125 volts, a couple of them were 250, and one was a 32 volt, but they were all the correct ampage, which was good. So at this point, I might replace these caps. I'm not sure yet. I think I'm going to go and pin out the connectors in the cabinet side, and then fire it up to see what we got. So, and then if I need to take it back out to cap it, that's fine. All right. Oh yeah, I forgot. So I like, instead of cutting the pins, I like to pull the pin out. But before what you do is solder in all the pins, and then the key pin, don't solder that one in. And while all the other pins are soldered in and holding the connector in place, you can slowly just wiggle the key pin out instead of cutting it. I did end up cutting this one over here, but I pulled the rest of them. And just make sure that you solder in the other pins first. So board looks pretty clean. I cleaned up some of the flux over here, and obviously all the connectors have been reflowed at this point, so we should be good as far as that goes. And I know the caps are good enough right now because the board was working, and I might wait to do the cap kit and then do the 5 volt mod as well. So alright, talk to you later. I'll be back. Alright, I have the board back in the game. I did not repin this connector that goes to the game board. Delivers the 5 volt, -5 plus 12 and stuff. I haven't put a new connector on this one yet because I don't have any 15 pin connectors. I did go ahead and replace this one. Unfortunately, had to use, I think, an 8 pin and a 6 pin, skipping 1 pin for the thing. I hate doing that, but I wanted to try to get this thing back together and make some progress. So, and also did this one here, and did this one here as well. Over here, I took the game board off and put a new header over here. Yeah, it's seated pretty good. And put also and repin that part. So have my leads hooked back up to the chip, and we'll power it on and measure voltage. And I already measured the voltage here, obviously without the game board being powered on first, just to make sure I wired everything up and there was no issues. So we'll power it on real quick and see what we get. So the voltage is a little bit better, 4.73. It looks like it's going down a little bit. Now we're in the 4.6 range. So, repinning, putting new pins in that header there might help a little bit more, but there's definitely, a drag on the power supply. Getting it all the way to the board here. Oh, sorry for that. And we're still getting the RAM error 132. I'll press the reset switch. 1 means RAM, 3 means bank 3, chip 2. And I'm going to get out of the shadow here. So this is bank 1, 2, 3. This is chip 2. So this should be the bad RAM. I guess we'll have to swap it out and see if we can make progress. I'm not happy with the voltage still, but I'm going to have to order some caps, recap it, put the 5 volt mod
and also repin that header. That's a voltage drop of, I think, well, it's definitely better than what we had. It was 4.3 before at the chip, but we're like at 5.1 on the power board itself. So you have a voltage drop of about 0.4. I'd like to get that a little bit better than that. Otherwise, we'll have to, crank up the voltage a little bit more to compensate so we can get a good 5 volts over here. So I guess I will replace the RAM chip and come back. There's a few other measurements we can do, so I look forward to kind of messing with this a little bit more.
Okay, I went ahead and pulled this power board off because I'm going to have, let's see, I will eventually recap it, but the caps I'm sure are good because I measured, I haven't measured them yet, so I actually don't know. Okay, I went ahead and pulled the power board for one that was in my Moon Patrol that I was working on, and this one I actually had done the 5 volt, let's see if you can see that, the 5 volt adjustment mod, so I can actually adjust the voltage. I am going to repin that out today probably. I found a 15 pin connector, so I'm going to do that today as well. But I can at least adjust the 5 volts so we can actually see at the chip a full 5 volts. Now this power supply has been giving me, I think there's something wrong with the crowbar circuit on it. Eventually it's been blowing that fuse in my Moon Patrol, but I figured, hey, why not test it in this? And I have kind of a fuse saver, so it's a 7 amp fuse that I just hooked up to that one fuse there in case it does blow. And I need to put a LED on for the -5, but I already tested it and the -5 volts is there. So all right, let's turn on our meter. And we're hooked up to pin 8 and pin 16 of that TTL chip there to measure 5 volts, and we'll power it on. About 4.9, almost 5 volts. And let's see what we get on the LEDs. 132. So we know that it's definitely not a power issue, because that's decent power there, and I can adjust it up just a little bit more if I need to with this adjustment there. So I think the next step really is to verify these RAMs. And I might verify a few of them, like pull them all out and see if I can get the behavior to change with just the very first one and bank 3 on. So I might try that. I don't know if that's I haven't seen anybody actually do that before, but people have mentioned doing it, so we'll see. So all of the I took out every single RAM chip, and what I would expect to see is a 131 error. So let's power it up and see what happens. So we still get a 132 error, which is kind of interesting, right? We have no RAM in and I get a 132 error. So interesting. Okay, just updating real quick. It was painful, but I took basically every single RAM chip, all of the ones that I found at the bottom of the cabinet, plus all the ones I removed from the board, and tested each one in my Stargate board in location 122. So row B, chip 2, and I did find found only 3 RAM chips that were bad or showing bad in the Stargate. So have about 40 plus good 4116s. So, and we only need 24 of them, so that's good. So we have plenty of RAM. No need to modify the board to not use the tri-voltage RAM, I would say. So, all right, be back when I have another step done.